This is the Wade Borth Podcast, where smart ideas spark new opportunities. If you're ready to see money in a whole new way and build a life on your terms, you're in the right place.
Hello, welcome back to the Wade Borth Podcast. Today, I have an amazing individual, Rohit Punyani. So again, we had a lot of conversations, but I always stumble over the last name. So thank you for giving me a little bit of grace. Everybody calls him Ro. His friends call him Ro, and he's allowed me the grace to call him Ro as being one of his friends. So I really appreciate that. So Ro, as a business owner, we go home, we take our hat off, whatever it is, and then we all our personal financing stuff we treat like personal finances. When we should really be thinking, how do I continue that, leave my hat on, and we talk about our household income, our household finances as a business. And that's a little bit what you're talking about. And all I would encourage people to do is, if you're hearing this, if you're going, man, there's something here that I need to know more about, reach out to me, give me a call, shoot me an email. You know how to reach me. We'll put the link down below. We'll put Ro's information down below, because if this is something that you're saying, this is something that I need to really understand for my business and for my personal understanding, we'd love having this conversation. I mean, I'm jazzed. I could probably sit here and talk for the next 2 hours. I'm not going to torture my listeners for that, but because nobody wants to listen to me talk about this. I want them to get the idea, and then let's sit down personally and say, how does this personally work within your world?
Yeah, and we partner. I think what's been really fun about getting to know you and the team at Vectum is we're all here with the client first mission. That is our deity, is the client, right? I'm almost one of the business owner side, but yeah, we'll partner and collaborate for these clients. But I think people always think you have to do one or the other, because the fallacy in planning is, if I get to the biggest number, I'm more likely to succeed. Okay, you have to get to a certain number. And we said it's either the reciprocal of 7 or the reciprocal of 4. Once you're in that range, a whole new opportunity set of planning opens up for you. And so, yes, in a very simplistic term, more capital is better than less. But what life has taught us, and the 4% rule has taught us, is that's not the whole arc of the story. That's not the whole truth. We're moving to your world. How that capital is structured matters just as much as the amount of capital you have. If you have a $40,000 a year policy, but you had the foresight to start in your 40s or 50s, in your 70s and 80s, you're spitting off 6 figures of cash flow, not income. You've created a lot of optionality down the road. And then people think it's an expense. I'm trying to tie 2 or 3 dialogues together, but if someone says, I don't want a 40K expense, first of all, you're going to have 40K of cash flow, of passive cash flow in retirement. If for no other reason, then it's your RMDs and your Social Security. Just take those 2 and put them into a policy, and it won't stop compounding. Everybody lives on a budget. Billionaires have to budget. Budgeting is not fun, but there's really ways to get, for lack of a better word, idiot proof, right? I mean, there's ways to make it for the everyday Joe like me,
You want a system, right? You want a process that wins every time, right? That's the whole idea, is budgeting or whatever you want to call it. It's like, how do we help create or empower? I look at, how do I empower my clients to bring some clarity, right? That's the problem with retirement, is there's very little clarity going forward. And I think the value that you and I can bring is how do we bring clarity, and are we going the right direction, and is this really going to work? And there's so much uncertainty in that type of planning. Again, there's a lot of uncertainty in tax planning too, but there's a lot of uncertainty in that. What does the next 30 years look like for me? But if we can bring more certainty and more clarity, we can bring that along with getting huge tax deductions along the way. How do you not win with that? And then again, I'm not opposed to saying, hey, how much money do you want in your 401k? I'm going to say as much as you can possibly get, because again, that's a driving engine, right? That's a separate economic power. It's not the same thing. That's the economy that's going to help you retire and replace your income. So this idea of one versus the other, I think, is crazy. I think it's that, hey, it's really the sequence. And there's an old adage that says, how you pack your bags when you're going up this hill, in your life, the hill of your experience in your life, how you pack your bags going up that hill will determine how you pack your bags coming back down.
We're going to make our mutual friend David Zapata smile and laugh if he watches this far into the episode. You and him inculcated in me in last month's training together of, we're here to offer clarity, perspective, and guidance, right? Yeah. So let's do that. The clarity is this idea that, okay, will I have enough, and can I deduct my way there? This is the roadmap to do that, right? Perspective is this idea of, okay, if it's all a trade-off, if I'm willing to give up some of my capital to get on the biggest number possible, and pensionize or life insurance or annuities, a portion of it, I can get the guarantees I want. And the guidance then is you tell me what path you want, right? If your goal is global dominion, then you probably aren't going to annuitize any of your portfolio. But everybody who doesn't have that goal, it does play a role. I have two things I have to share because that's super fun for me. I think it was the 2016 annual report from LIMRA that showed that people with annuities have a slightly longer lifespan.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Which is so cool to me. And there was also an article, I think it was October of 2005 in the Wall Street Journal called Friends, Neighbors, and Annuities. And it talks about how people with annuities, they don't have nearly as much stress. Because what happens when you're in the all good world, the all S&P world, right? You will probably end up with more wealth over time. But if there's a dip, you're like, I have to spend less. Can I go to the doctor? Should I delay that? Right? So if your basic needs are met by guaranteed income, right, and that income is flowing through a policy, my retirement design is annuitize enough to cover my premium in retirement, and the rest is going to be in stocks. I love stocks. I love stocks just as much, actually, maybe even more than I like whole life. But I just hated the dichotomy that existed. But that data point about people with annuities live longer and have less stress, that's the ball game. Who wants to sit around and track the dude Dow Jones in retirement? Like, I don't know.
Give a shout out to, I think it's Tom Hegna always said this. He says, people with income are happy and people with assets are miserable, right, in retirement. I probably paraphrased, I probably butchered it, but the idea is those that have guaranteed income, they go out and they live. People that have assets, like you said, that are all S&P and that's what they're living on, they start living a very scarcity mindset. I've seen this with my clients. It's not just something that's theoretical. I've seen it with my clients. Like the market goes down and all of a sudden they're going to plan to buy a new boat. I'm like, oh, I can't buy that new boat. I'm like, yeah, you can. But again, instantly that, it's just human nature. We draw back in as soon as we see a little bit of fear. We find that and we live a little on scarcity mindset. So I would encourage people to start thinking, how can I live abundantly in our lives? And abundantly is because we know what's going to happen. We don't have to think what's going to happen. So
yeah, and back to the book above you don't be afraid to pay premium, because for me, how I view it is I'm going to try to pay as much premium as my lifestyle. So let's say I want to spend $200,000 a year in retirement. I'm going to target $200K of premium. Okay. But what I'm going to do is annuitize enough of my could world, enough of my S&Ps and individual dividend growth stocks. That's where I play. I like cash flow more than I like appreciation, but I'm going to annuitize the exact amount of that portfolio enough to feed that premium. So I have a guarantee. I have mailbox money. An annuity is mailbox money. Okay. So I have mailbox money coming in to my premium. Then all the rest is just go hog wild. That's exactly why the numbers are TBD, because I don't know what the S&P is going to be in 20 years. It's going to be higher than it is, but I don't know the path that it's going to be there. But that's my financial planning, is pay premium in as much as I possibly can, annuitize enough so that premium never is always met, no matter what happens with the market. Because at this point, if I'm doing 100, 150K of premium, I'm probably releasing 300, 400, 500 a year in retirement. And that's what the pension system allows you to do. It lets you get that premium at wholesale pricing with a discount. And it lets you get the annuity via tax deduction. So a good pension is going to solve that part of the puzzle. And then you have freedom to do IBC with your other after-tax dollars and to buy markets, right? So IBC is the foundation. The way to get whole life and annuities cheaper is a pension. And then all the rest is go buy real estate, go be intrepid, go buy S&Ps, go do those wonderful, delicious things that create wealth.
The proper sequence. And that's really what we're talking about. Sequence and doing in the proper sequence. Because again, if you're not doing things in the proper sequence, that's what causes people to have a lot of sleepless nights. That's what brings anxiety to a lot of people that I've run into, is like, because they go, oh, I need to have these investments, but they didn't have cash reserve, right? That was the start of the conversation. And so then when things don't go quite as planned, they don't have anything, and that brings anxiety, that brings sleepless nights. So let's bring down the anxiety level. Let's bring down that fear level that can creep up, because you look at the guys like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. I mean, I was just doing a little reading on those guys the other day. Up until Warren, when he exited the business, they're sitting on 30 to 40% cash reserves of some sort, right?
Yeah, about 390 billion in T-bills right now, and he's historically had a large war chest. And back to the longevity, Munger is the best. He's the real brains behind the operation. He's got two quotes that I think about almost daily. One is, tell me where I'm going to die so I don't go there. But since we don't know that, you should probably have life insurance. The other is, you're going to have as much luck as a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest, right? That's like not being prepared, not having a margin of safety. And that's unfortunately what retirement's become. And there's great literature out there from BlackRock does an annual study, and they've talked about, I think, 62% of respondents say they have more fear of running out of money than they have running out of life. And there's ways to inoculate that. You just have to check your ego at the door. The whole conversation is funny. I will talk to anybody about tax arbitrage and the mathematical aspects of planning, but it all collapses to behavior and choices in that. And you use the word leadership so much, and I love that about you. And are you willing to say, for some of my money, I'm going to give it a 5, 6, 7% job, not a 10% job. And if you're willing to do that, a whole universe of choice opens up to you. And this has been my epiphany. Look, I was a Wall Street guy, a chief investment officer, and I'm sitting here going, you know what? Where it all coalesced for me, and I think you may have seen or talked, we got closer after the first podcast I ever did was the Caleb Better Wealth podcast, where I said, I love life insurance because it lets me keep buying stocks. That's actually why I fell in love with it. It beats bonds. It's liquid. It protects. I like life insurance because it gives me staying power. And you use the phrase, you need liquidity to be an investor. Yes. Yeah. That's my version of it is different than Factos, but it's the same core ideas. I'm repeating you. So everyone listening, Wade taught me the sentence. I'm just saying it. Okay. Wade taught me this sentence. So light bulbs, if your liquidity doesn't scale with your assets, your income, it's fragile. And so your liquidity must scale with your wealth.
Yeah. And that liquidity, thank you for the shout out. Again, it probably wasn't my idea. It was something we gathered because we're all just in here gleaning this information and trying to bring it to anybody that's listening and people that want to hear something a little bit different. That this idea of, it's got to be the proper sequence, the proper percentages. And that's where the real beauty starts to happen here is like, I understand how it's just this asset fits into my overall portfolio.
And overall plan, yeah.
And then maximizing the benefits that this asset has, right? And I don't think people have an understanding, or a lot of people don't have the understanding of how to maximize those assets. And that's why you and I get so excited, because we can see and we understand how we can maximize that asset in the proper sequence, in the proper position of our overall portfolio. So.
Yeah, and we're sort of coming to a natural stopping point for this episode, but I'd love to keep jamming out with you this or a later time. But yeah, so what should the listener hear? I think Factum is among the best out there at helping you figure out that plan. Where my firm comes in is we don't do as much broad-based planning. We do it, but we really do it for the business owner. How do you get these golden assets that both the organizations love? Can you get it via deduction? I specialize in tax arbitrage, right? I think of myself as a sniper, right? Not the field general, the way the team I met in Indianapolis is. But yeah, if you are interested in these types of assets, explore all avenues. Okay, is it more efficient where I am right now to just use my after-tax dollars? Is it more efficient to use pre-tax dollars? Both are available. Let's see what fits your situation and where you are in your life story. And that's how our organizations partner. So that's everything I have on this topic.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's, like you said, it's a good natural stopping spot. But just really quick, so if somebody says, hey, Wade, man, I love what Ro was talking about. I really need to have a conversation with him. What does the first conversation look like? What would be successful? Like if I introduce you to one of our listeners or somebody that came to me, just give somebody an idea what that would look like. What do they need to bring to the table?
Yeah, great questions. I'm going to answer two different questions. The first is a lot of our relationships are actually with other advisors. So I met this very talented, I think I met 18 or 19 folks on the Factum team. We partner with other advisors first and foremost. We put them as the lead agent because it's their relationship. A good advisor say, oh, I have a business owner. A good advisor's view of the world is I am the quarterback, but the quarterback isn't also the receiver and the running back, right? It can't play every position. The quarterback says, I'm going to go out, curate the world, and marshal the best resources that are out there. In the pension world, I hope we aspire to be on that list, right? So to answer your question, what does it look like? If you're an individual listening to this, ask your advisor about this stuff or come to me directly and I'll bring in your advisor. That's how transparent we are as an organization, okay? Second, what do they want? You can go to the first dialogue is typically us just getting to know you. Questions, what matter most. I need to figure out, do you even have a problem? How big is it? And is this solved for you, right? What is the most important thing we can learn about that client on that day and how this fits in? Because I would say 3 out of 10 people who come to us, they're not ready yet. Okay? Their business hasn't hit scale. I'm not going to force a plan they're either too young or their revenue is too episodic, right? And so 3 out of 10 people aren't even in our sweet spot, but we maintain the relationship, we educate, we talk to them. And then what does the dialogue look like? The first is, tell me about yourself. What are you looking to achieve? Have you paid a tax bill the last 2 years in a row? And we just get to know them and we show them how we work. And then we have a really cool process. I'm really proud. Mark, my co-founder and CEO, is very process oriented. I do much more of the sales work and the relationship work, but we have a simple intake form. It takes about 12 to 15 minutes. And from that intake form, I can generate a proposal, tell you your deduction, how much can be in life insurance, how much in annuities. And here's my commitment to every someone who comes into our ecosystem. I live behind a camera. I record a private video for every single prospect on their proposal. And I walk through the proposal. Where's the tax? Where's the economic benefit? What percentage is allowed to be in life insurance? What is the death benefit? For some clients, I even go as far, because the solopreneurs really want this from me. I'm a 1099 row. I do my own taxes. Great. On a 1099, it's a Schedule C. You actually reconcile this on line 17. I will walk them through how to file their taxes for crying out loud to do this. And so whether you become a client or not, everybody gets a custom roadmap for their pension, for everybody, whether you do it or not. And then after getting to know them, seeing if they're a fit, recording the video, clients typically like, great, let's move forward. That's typically how it works. But I'd say about 30% of people don't actually fit what we do. And then the rest is partnering with your current advisor or going directly with the business owner if they're a DIYer, which, that's our process. That's who we are. It's it's ownersasset.com. And we have a playbook that you could download that is a 24-page summary of all the questions you asked me today have already been answered on paper, but it's people listen better than they read. Who is this fit for? I actually have a section dedicated to, here's what you take to your CPA. Here's actually how to reconcile it. Here's the avatar of the client. I think you and I have talked about our playbook, and so we've gone over it.
Thank you guys. Mark actually sent me a copy of it, so I appreciate the fact that he did share that with me. I was like, oh, this is really good. So part of the questions I was asking was like, so people can get an understanding of it. This isn't haphazard. This is a very clear, concise process that you guys have refined over years. So
we've been at this for just under 4 years now in the pension world, and I've been obviously doing advisory and planning work for 2 decades. And I want to reiterate that first point is when someone on the Factum team or someone has an advisor, we look at ourselves as a tactical teammate. We are, if you have a case that you think works, we're going to collaborate together, because I'm going to say, wait, does this fit with their overall plan? Tell me what their overall plan is, right? And how this fits in, because if we can get a deduction to complete your plan, everybody wins. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But what we find, and I know we're trying to wrap up, but what I also find is business owners, as they grow their business and do really well, they start to have estate planning opportunities and estate planning problems. And so imagine buying life insurance, which is probably the ultimate estate planning asset that's out there, right? It guarantees liquidity and is estate tax free, right? So we also find that as your business scales, the types of problems and challenges you have are different. Well, if you can get life insurance with pre-tax dollars, I can solve an estate planning problem with you and your advisor on the back end, right? We take the insurance out of the pension, then we move it to an irrevocable structure. And we've just manufactured liquidity to pay Uncle Sam if you have an estate planning problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the dominoes don't end on how pensions change lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's man, we could go into the estate planning side of it, but let's find a time right now. I want to bring out one thing, and I'm going to thank you for your time, and then we can do this again, because I'm serious about people wanting to understand this and really engage us. If it's a good fit for them, that's what I'm excited about. Again, we don't put round pegs in square holes. That's why I love about, when I first started talking to you, you said that like 10 times. I'm like, that dude gets it, because I see there's a lot of people in the industry like, hey, I'll get that son of a gun in there one way or the other. So I appreciate that of you. But again, if you are a self-employed individual, 1099, K1, or even some W-2 income.
From your own S-Corp, W-2 from your own S-Corp, because S-Corp is the most popular structure in the LLC world.
Right.
So I don't want people to say, oh, I have W-2 income. No, if it's from your own S-Corp, you qualify. We can pensionize a portion of your income statement. Yeah.
So if you have any of those and you made the point, if you're making how much in quarterly payments, that this probably is worth the time and effort, at least to explore the conversation.
Yeah, 25 to 30K, 20 to 5K a quarter or more, quarterly estimated. That means you're doing typically 300 to 400K of top line, and you're pre-funding some of your tax liability. That's a 5-alarm fire that there's but anybody who's paid some taxes or just has excess cash flow, Because your point is, I don't want you to say, because some people don't pay quarterly estimated because they're going to buy heavy machinery. And I thought you gave me a lot of clarity in saying, okay, maybe I'll wait an extra year or two on the huge piece of machinery and put a pension in place. That's a logical use. So that's why I don't want to just anchor on the quarterly estimated, but for service-based businesses, the quarterly estimate is a good one. For more traditional, get your hands dirty, old school good businesses, like the kinds that are, we're really proud of. You have some choice there. You can say, okay, maybe I still need the equipment. I'll rehab it and build it into my budget because I like this idea of a pension as well. And so you could do one or the other. And I think businesses have life cycles. When you're really small, you do the heavy vehicle because you're not going to commit to a huge pension. But when you're 3, 4, 5 employees, you've been in business 6, 7, 8 years, that's typically when people come into our lives. And then, we change people's lives. I mentioned it before, but we got a 70 and 68-year-old couple a $600,000 a year deduction for 3 years. So that saved them $1.8 million of deductions to buy $5 million of death benefit. And they had no death benefit, and they're an affluent couple. They've done no estate planning. Their plan's going to close in a few months. I'm going to pull the pension, close the pension, pull the insurance out, move the insurance over to a trust. They got $1.8 million deductions to get $5.5 million, double that for the estate shield. They got an $11 million estate planning shield via $1.8 million deduction. That fires me up. That's why I started.
That's leverage. That's pennies on the dollar, right?
That's pure gold, right?
All right, Roll, you and I could go on and on. But for the listener, thank you so much for tuning in. I would just say, think about this. You're hearing this, you're probably going, that's me. I could benefit. Reach out to us. We'll put the Rose contact information in there in the show notes. Again, we'll have mine there. We'll have those in the show notes. Reach out to us. We can definitely bring value to you if you have the pain of paying taxes and again fall into those those areas of getting a K1 1099 or W2 from a S corp. So, Ro, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time. Appreciate your knowledge and understanding this, and really love the fact that we're coming together, partnerships, or not a partnership, a collaboration. Because again, that's how people grow, and that's how we can serve more and more people. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. I look forward to spending time together. Thank you.
You bet.
I appreciate you spending some time with me. Change starts with understanding, and action builds the future. We'll catch you on the next episode.